off to the principal's office I go. Yo, you think this is bad? Wait till I get my report card.
Welcome to episode 16 of the Principal's Office, a podcast series which aims to give viewers greater insights into educational practice. It's certainly much more than a 9 to 3 job. I'm your host, Matt Lewis, and today I am very fortunate to have key members of this particular program at Lidcombe Public School. So with me today is Kylie Ward, who is the Deputy Principal at Lidcombe Public School, and Nerida Clift, who is an assistant principal at Lidcombe Public School, but also a new mum and currently on maternity leave. But LISC has been a very, very important program within our school, and you guys have been at the forefront of it. So this conversation should be an awesome one. So welcome, guys, and thank you for joining us today.
Hello.
Hi, Matt. Thank you.
Oh, not a problem, not a problem. To get us started, I usually do a funny story. Now, Kylie, this is your second time that you've been on the principal's office. So we can make it a funny story, or we can make it just a heartwarming story. A couple of episodes ago when we had Susan Arn and Sarah Tran on, they just gave us heartwarming stories, and that was really, really nice. So it can be a heartwarming story or a funny story, but we'll start with you, Kylie. What have you got for us today?
All right. So just in terms of a story, I suppose the role that I'm in now, I'm really fortunate to have many heartwarming moments because I'm doing a role of supporting students. I get to work with a lot of families who are experiencing hardship. With the recent crisis in Afghanistan, and working with families and connecting them to networks within their own community within Australia, because sometimes they can feel very isolated. So working with families in my role, we're connecting them with either external agencies for wellbeing or to support the family with food, through agencies like charities and things like that. That's really heartwarming to be involved in those sorts of things that can change not just make a better life for the children at home, but also for their whole family. So I'm really fortunate to be in that role.
Yeah, and it's those where we get the greatest outcomes, isn't it? You know, they come from so very, very little, but when we have positive outcomes and we make not only their school life better, but their life in general better, that's the heart stuff, isn't it? That's what makes us feel really good about our role and whatnot. But we've had some real impact, and when we have that impact, we feel like we're doing something very, very special. So yeah, fantastic.
So, I just had to, because wellbeing is so linked to engaging well at school, and sometimes these parents haven't had good experiences with their own schooling. So for them to be able to feel welcomed into our school, it helps change their thoughts of school and then impact on their children's education. So it has, I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, and so it's much more than a 9 to 3 job, and it's much more than just teaching in front of your class, isn't it? It's a major part of these kids' lives, and so we have impact on a variety of parts within their life. Outstanding, Kylie. In that role of deputy principal supporting students, you have absolutely been outstanding. You've absolutely changed the role. So I'm very, very fortunate to have you in that role. Nerida, what about you? Funny story?
Yeah, I was going to talk about the guinea pig. The guinea pigs.
Goodness me. Oh, well, yes, please do. Please do.
So as a new early stage 1 assistant principal, I think it was around term 3, we were looking at a unit of work on living and non-living things. And previously, in years gone by, students have had a class pet, and that has always, as far as I know, has been a stick insect. Like a stick insect freak me out. Like I just, no, there was just no way we were getting a stick insect. So I thought maybe chickens is good. We can see a bit of the life cycle there. If we get like Henny Penny out, watch the eggs hatch and the chicks, and care for them, and learn about what living things need to survive. That was a no from Matt. So I had to look at another alternative pet to get, and what greater pet than guinea pigs. For those who've never owned guinea pigs, they're hard work. They're really hard work to look after. They just need to be fed constantly. And it took on a lot more than I had bargained for. So luckily, Karen from the office helped me out in connecting a breeder. Finally, we looked at all the things we needed to take care of guinea pigs. Presented all that information to Matt. He gave the approval. So yes, finally getting a good pet for early stage 1. The condition was that there was only going to be 2 of the same sex. So the breeder confirmed 100% they were both female guinea pigs. Anyway, got them in. We had a great unit of work, about maybe 4 or 5 weeks in. And one of the office ladies had taken the guinea pigs up to the office so they could sit on their desk while they do the work. Very cute. And I think it was a Friday afternoon. I go into my classroom and there's loads of people in my room, and they're all talking about the guinea pigs. So what's happened? I said, have you noticed one of them's got a little waddle when she walks? I was like, no, I haven't. I said, yeah. So I think she's put on weight. She's a bit bigger. I think maybe this guinea pig's pregnant. I said, no, can't be pregnant. We have 2 of the same sex. They're both girls, cannot be pregnant. Maybe the guinea pig was impregnated before we received them. This is not on, because we triple checked that they were 2 girls. Turns out, as guinea pigs mature, when guinea pigs are babies, it's tricky to determine the sex. So as they get older, it turns out she was a he, and we now have a pregnant guinea pig. And I am stressing, because I'm petrified to tell Matt. I didn't know what to do. And I know you, Matt, like solutions. You don't like problems. Or problems are a little bit easier to swallow when there's solutions in place. So I was like, no one tell Matt, whatever you do not tell him until I figure out a solution to this. Next second, Matt comes in, no! I lose it. I was like, I've lost my job. I don't know. I don't know what to do from here. Just stressing out massively. And yeah, we all had a good laugh about it, but seriously, just was petrified. I was absolutely petrified of what to do. And yeah, so that was on a Friday. So I think it was a long weekend, maybe. I can't remember, but either the Monday or the Tuesday, whenever we came back in, I opened my classroom door to the guinea pigs, and there's these 2 little babies, and the kids loved it. It turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because lots of questions were asked, and the kids just loved watching the little babies grow. But yeah, it was, oh my God, I've never been more scared in my whole life.
Scared of me, honestly.
Yeah.
But look, I've got to say, scarred for life, because I don't think I will ever have guinea pigs in the school ever again. No, look, I've got to say that the outcome was just fantastic, wasn't it? And kids got to see it. They enjoyed it. That was certainly worth it in the end, to see the kids' reaction and their understanding behind it. So, it was certainly very funny. And now I look at it from this stage. But I wasn't quite laughing. Although when I did come in and go Nerida, I put that on. I did put that on. It wasn't, I was well aware by that stage. Other people had told me and whatnot. And I thought, I might just give Nerida a bit of a scare here, type of thing. So I'll put that on.
It also made it funnier because we were also partway through an online TPL at the time.
Don't remind me of that either.
That's best.
Yeah, so they say don't work with kids or animals. Don't work with both at the same time.
But look, for our pre-service teachers out there or early career teachers that are watching, it's never a dull moment at a school. And that's the beauty of our work, I think, that we can have so much fun, but also, we've got a really important job to do at the same time. Thanks for those, guys. Really appreciate that beginning to our vodcast today. Let's talk about LISC. LISC stands for Learning Intentions and Success Criteria. Give us a brief understanding of what LISC means in our school's context, and what effect does this understanding have on teams within our school with regards to planning units, reporting, assessing student skills. What has it meant for our school? It's been a wonderful program.
So I was going to answer this one. It's a pretty loaded question. So I've broken it down into sort of different parts to answer. But basically, having learning intentions and success criteria takes out the guesswork for both teachers and students. So it allows teachers, and in particular new teachers, to not get so overwhelmed with what they're trying to focus on or what they're trying to teach. We're always so time poor, and we want to jam as much as we can into our lessons that it can almost lose meaning. So it just gives a clear direction, and for students, they have a clear understanding of what they need to achieve and how to get there, and also they're learning how to improve on their own work. So it's just learning intention success criteria basically states what you want students to achieve and showing them exactly how to get there. I've just sort of explained it a little bit within an example, because I thought that would be the easiest way for listeners or viewers to get a better understanding, especially because we might have some pre-service teachers or early career teachers that may not have a thorough understanding of what learning intention success criteria looks like in a classroom. As a teacher, say for example, it's a writing lesson. You ask students to complete a writing task. When you get that back, you've got 3 or 4 pages of writing, depending on what grade you're teaching. But you may have 1 to 4 pages of writing to mark. As a teacher, you've got to get through those pages, mark all of it, times 30, and that's not including any other lesson that you taught during that day. You've gone through, you've marked everything you say wrong, you've highlighted to the student. Now, are you looking, there's no clear direction there. So the student gets their book back. They may or may not even look at the last piece of writing that they did. They just see marks all over the page. And time again, as they do that writing task, however many times a week, however many years they're at school, all the feedback that they're sort of getting from that is that they're not very good at writing, because look at all these mistakes I've made, or the teacher feedback might be something like, it'd be great to have more adjectives. But if a student doesn't really understand what have a good understanding of what an adjective is, or how to include that in their writing, then they're just not going to do it. So it's just sort of meaningless feedback a little bit there. And I think that can also just create this mindset that they're not good. So it's actually demotivating having this work marked. So what LISC does is it gets specific. So it less is more in this case. So you outline to students exactly what you want to see, keeping it stage appropriate and achievable, and that can also be adjusted depending on the student needs. So you can have a few less expectations or a few more in your success criteria. But at Lidcombe Public School, in every classroom, the beginning of every lesson will be stated as with the learning intention, which is, we are learning too. So that's how we open up any lesson. And in this case, let's keep it with the writing sample. We'll say to write a narrative. So the teacher will develop a list of I can statements. So we want to build confidence in the learner. So by stating everything as I can, students are subconsciously always telling themselves that they can do all of these things, even if they're just learning how to do it. So things like, for a writing sample, we're saying I can write a beginning, middle, and end to a story. I can create a setting stating who, what, and where. I can create a problem and a resolution. So it's just reminding students of what to include as they're going through their work. The teacher will then model what it looks like. So the teacher will involve the students in that. So it'll be a jointly constructed text with the class. We often do that on pieces of paper or digitally, and that's saved. So it's either printed out and posted on the wall, or if it's, or it can just be brought up back on the interactive whiteboard. Anyway, it's around, so students always have reference to it, and teachers will also reuse this writing sample again to draw out different sort of teaching points in future lessons. And also by involving the students in that joint construction, they've taken ownership over that. They're a part of that learning. They're going to remember it more and be able to see exactly what they're aiming for.
Yeah, and especially in terms of those I can statements, and I suppose, that was a bit of a broad example, and we would have that for, say, years 3, 4, 5, and 6, like that. But, we can also make the focus very narrow so that we can have a deep reflection on what needs to be done. So there's something in kindergarten could be, I can use capital letters to start my sentences. You know what I mean? And, just through that learning intention, that'd be a success criteria, mind you, through that success criteria, it makes it very easy for the children to reflect on their work and edit their work before it actually comes to you, type of thing. So, they're very involved in that process when they can see or they can hear what they need to do as a result. You know what I mean? I suppose it depends on our demonstrations. And if our demonstration is really, really good as well in the joint construction of the text or whatever it is, the greater success our children will have. So it is allowing for us to have a narrow and deep focus. But in respect to teams, are we using backward mapping? Does that help to plan our units when it comes to LISC? Or are we trying to do things sequentially?
So it can work both ways. So as a team planning a unit of work for future terms, you can use a backward mapping system or method where it's, we start with what we want to see at the end and then work backwards as to how we're going to achieve it. What steps are we going to take to get there? But also using feedback, what we get from student work, because it is in real time, it's real-time data and feedback, we're able to make adjustments as we go. So there's no, that mindset of having a fixed program for the term. This is the term 3, unit of work. This is what we stick to. That sort of, there's a lot more fluidity now. So we would, assess data at intervals, whether it's every 5 weeks or just at the point of need, where we realize the students aren't quite getting, in your program, you might be up to teaching X, Y, and Z, but you haven't, the students don't have a good understanding of A, B, and C. So having learning intention, success criteria, and student goals, learning goals, we're able to go back and just spread the students out a little bit more and teach at their point of need, which I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that fluidity certainly allows us to be more individualized with what we're doing. And that's what, LISC really does. It individualizes what we're doing with the students, and that can be very, very hard. But, the old days of this is our term 3 program, this is the complete framework, this is what we do, need to follow it to the letter of the law. Well, that's out the window. We can have an overarching type of what units we want to do, but we need to probably change our program week to week, every 2 weeks or whatever, to suit what's going on with our students in response to those activities. So fantastic answer. Thank you so much, Nerida. That was wonderful. Moving on to the next question. LISC comes from Hattie, John Hattie's fantastic work in visible learning. We could have called it visible learning, but there's a bit of a copyright on that, and that's why we call it LISC in our school. But why is it important to move along this track of providing the rhetoric around what the students will be learning and how they can go about achieving their success? Nerida touched on it a little bit, but Kylie, why is it so important?
Well, I think it makes it visible for all students too, and what Nerida was talking about with it being part of programming, but it's also part of what students are doing in the classroom. So it comes out of the program and comes to be in front of the students. So students are aware of their learning as the purpose behind it and why it's important. So goals do become quite individualized, and students do start to monitor their own learning. I know that in my classrooms, I've had students even in year 1 and kindergarten can understand goals written in language that's appropriate for them, of what they need to, where they are now and what they need to do next. The learning intention success criteria are part of that, the pathway to success for them. So when like you're reading with a child, for example, and before they come to the reading table, they can actually check for themselves, or if they're not able to read yet, you can read for them what their learning goal is. Then before they start the process, they can then monitor what they're doing as well. So they become quite self-evaluating, and as they go through the process, you give specific feedback related to what you discussed at the beginning as the goals. So it's really important for the students, because before they start their learning or whatever lesson they're about to do, they know what's expected of them. I liked having students' learning goals on displayed in the room, and there was no competition or anything. Like, students weren't aware of whose goals were differentiated in different ways, other than what they needed to do next. So there was no levels displayed and things like that. It was rather the learning that was going to take place and how that was going to happen. So I found students really receptive, even the youngest of students, to what their learning goal was. And even as adults, we all like to know what the process of what we're going to do. Like even with today, when we had to prepare for our meeting today, this podcast, Nerida and we wanted to know what it was going to be about. And I think that I know that when I was at school, there was no such thing as that. And I think for now, when teachers can go into the classroom, the students, even the most timid student, or the one that's lacking the most confidence, when you can go through what's about to happen and what you need to see, or what you'd like to work with them with, it takes a lot of anxiety out of that learning as well. When we're looking at the work from Hattie, he's also he combines all the research that he's done, a massive amount of research, and then he talks about the impact of teachers on the students. So how is what they're doing in the classroom different to teachers who are not having impact in the classroom? And I think then when you're looking at learning intention success criteria, and you're talking to students about the process, you're talking to them about their way of thinking, their way of learning, getting them to talk through the process, what they're doing now and what they need to do to achieve it, letting them know that you're going along that journey with them, with their learning. And also he's talking, Hattie looks in his visible learning about how important it is for students to have a year's growth for a year's learning. Now, that's completely different for every student. So when you look at learning intention success criteria and the teacher going into the classroom and breaking down those, like I like to do it as have a whole class learning intention success criteria, and then looking at students' goals within that, and they're differentiated. So they're things that you may have in your program, they're things that you discuss with the students, so that every student in that classroom can achieve success. Now, and success looks different for all of them, but success is still celebrated at every level for students. Really important. The feedback that's provided to students, which Nerida's talked about, and you've talked about, Matt, too, the feedback is critical. When you're talking to students while they're in the process of their learning, and the directions that they're taking, and how they got to their answers. That's really important. At the end of that is when you come to the end and you're discussing the success criteria and how successful they were, it's then the questions are about where to next. And even like Nerida was talking about the writing goals, even with kindergarten and year one, like the youngest students and all the way through K to 6, we look at the where to next is what you've achieved, what you've just achieved, and what's next for that student, letting them know up front that you've done really well on that. We might need to do a little bit more, focus more on this, but we're moving on. We're going to be looking at something else next time, and letting them know up front, letting them help to be part of the process, and regulating their own learning is really important.
Yeah. And look, I'm going to take a couple of grabs here, because a year's growth is need to be experienced by every child. Isn't it so right? And this system allows us to do that. Whereas, in the older days and whatnot, and sometimes our early career teachers can be guilty of this, preaching towards the middle in your class and just expecting that everybody's going to be on the same level and not differentiate at all, will lead to, some kids growing, others stagnating, others even dropping in performance. But when we're, stating the learning intention and the success criteria behind that, and being more individualised with what we're doing, everybody's growing. And we can see that, and even those conversations, when talking about that feedback, it provides us with the tools to talk about that feedback, and kids are more readily accepting of that rather than getting upset, because they realise it's about the process and not about them individually or personally. You know what I mean? And I'll also say, I remember vividly going into your classroom, Kylie, and whilst everything was differentiated, there was certainly no feeling of levels within that classroom. You had everybody on their goals, going towards their cloud in their hot air balloon, and they could have been going all over the pinboard and whatnot. And I thought, that was such a smart way of doing things in a year one class, because we don't need a hierarchy. We just need to be telling kids, this is the goal we're trying to achieve, and this is what you are doing, type of thing. And I just thought that was very, very smart. So just unbelievable stuff. And it allows us to go in so many different areas. And so for our pre-service teachers and early career teachers, so important to differentiate, and make sure kids are moving and growing for that particular year. Thanks, Kylie. Great answer. There has to be ownership at a class and teams level to plan lessons this way, to collect, collate and assess data by every teacher, for consistency's sake. You know what I mean? If every class on that grade's doing it the same way, the parents obviously become very aware of our processes as well, because they're talking to their children at night. So, when we're doing this as a team and we're all owning this process, how does this happen at Lidcombe? What key things do we do as a team to make sure that everyone's on the same page, doing the same thing?
So to make sure that there is ownership over it, we need to give it some value. So everybody needs to understand the why behind what we're doing. So if it doesn't have meaning, it's not going to happen. So that was Kylie and I were lucky enough to go to Shell Cove to see what that school. So that school, if you're not aware, sort of started this journey before a lot of other schools. So they had 5 years on us before we even begun this journey, and we're now, I think, in our 4th year of doing it at Lidcombe. So, you know, they've really got it down packed there. They've also got some good resources on their website too, that we've borrowed and you know, changed it up to suit our school context. So that was really important for us to see it in real, to see how it works and that it is doable. Then we took that back to our school and started, you know, preaching. So we were able to see that this is really good. How's it going to work in our school? So starting off small, we grew and grew and grew. And, you know, after 3 years, we got the whole school on board. But it was a slower process, and yeah, having everyone on board can ensure that it happens. We also do things like we have data share presentations where teams and stages meet and share it with other teachers across stages and throughout the school about what they're doing in their own programming or with their class or with their grade using LISC, and that inspires other teachers to incorporate, firstly, see it in action, see it's doable and it is easy, but giving them inspiration on how they can also, other ways that they can implement that in their classroom. But it needs to be made a priority. Lots of other things at school will always come up and overpower your data meetings or your programming time, just because schools are busy places. So we were lucky enough to have collaborative planning days where we got dedicated time to sit down, and this is just our focus. We are just focusing on how we can implement learning intentions and success criteria into our programming. And I've made it a point with my team that every 5 weeks we sit down and we bring all of our data to the table and we share across the stage what we're seeing, what are the strengths, and celebrating those, and what are some other areas of weakness that we can target in, you know, a short, sharp intervention period. And by doing that, we just helping boost those students that may be struggling a little bit to just bring them up and let them feel good about success too, because quite often there's students that are sort of sitting at the bottom, don't have a very good self-esteem when they're learning. They just think, oh, I'm not good at this, and again, it's going back to that building confidence, and seeing them after like a short 5-week intervention, and they can articulate their goal. They say, oh, I was working on this, but look, I can do this now. Like their little faces light up. It's awesome to see.
Well, look, I'll grab something there.
Yeah, I think that's it.
You talked about the why. You know, whenever we do something, we need to know the why, and that's the great teachings from Simon Sinek, an educationalist, a current educationalist that we listen to, that most educators do listen to, and for our pre-service teachers, it is good to, you know, listen to TED Talks or, you know, our various educationalists that can point the way forward for us, but to know the why behind what we're doing, and, you know, how that translates into success. That was a big thing for our staff, because we were sort of trialing it first, weren't we? And then we expected everybody to be on board so they could see exactly what we were doing. And then we talked about making it a priority, and the data sharing sessions is something that's has become synonymous with our school over the last couple of years with COVID interventions and whatnot. Probably almost impossible to get to, but you know, we do our very best. But making it a priority, even in, you know, observation lessons with your supervisor or a peer or whatever. You know, one of the key things that we put onto those observation track records are, you know, do you have a learning intention for this lesson, and do you follow success criteria, or do the children follow success criteria to get to where they need to get? You know, of course, differentiation forms part of that observation as well. So we do make it a priority, and now it's expected, isn't it, of every teacher that, you know, every lesson does contain a learning intention and success criteria to get the kids moving forward. And as a result, we respond individually to kids, which is a really exciting space. It's a lot of hard work for teachers, but through hard work comes reward. And when we see the rewards, that's what we're in teaching for. Born teachers want to see kids excited by, their achievements and what they're actually learning. So, yeah, that's why it's so important. Thanks, Nerida. You wanted to add, or?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I did just remember another point I had. Because it is like real-time data as well, it makes it easier for reporting purposes. So when you're up to writing your half-yearly or yearly school reports, it's there, it's current, it can just be slotted into the grades. And it's really good for parents too. So when you sit down at those parent-teacher meetings, or if you have a parent that comes in and just wants to ask, how's my child going? You've got the physical evidence in front of you to say, this is how much they've grown and changed. This is where your child's learning. And it's good to also tell the parents, it's okay not to compare, because we all know parents have parent friends, and there's just general chit chat in the playground. But you can actually say to the parent, this is where your child's at, and I'm teaching them to their level. So it's really catered to every individual student need, and they're growing and changing, and you can see that. It's tangible evidence, and parents really appreciate that.
Absolutely, and to be able to talk about children in an individualised way like that, even at my level, when you guys share that type of information with me, I can have conversations around what kids are doing in their class, and and individual kids. So it becomes a very exciting conversation to have with parents, and a very reassuring one for parents to know that not only does their teacher know exactly where the child is headed with their learning, but there's a variety of people that know. So my child is known, valued and cared for. So yeah. Fantastic. All right, final question before we get to the other exciting part of our podcast. How do we know we are doing the right thing when it comes to LISC, Learning Intention Success Criteria, and student improvement? How does that translate to other schools or even our whole system? Kylie, you're going to answer this one?
Yes, I think that we've already touched on a lot of it, but I think also when students can articulate their goals to their teachers, to talk about their learning, be involved in those discussions that previously only, I suppose, teachers were talking about. Now students are using that some of that dialogue and being involved in discussions. And they can also articulate that to their parents. So we have the discussion with their parents about their learning, and the students can as well, and talk about their learning. A lot of those learning intentions and success criteria were also linked when just recently we had to send home booklets during the learning from home period. So that was also linked in through there. Students become resilient and confident learners as well, because they understand that their learning has purpose and why they're doing the learning. The practice is also aligned to the current professional documents for teachers. So the CC What Works Best document, when we look at that and the 8 themes of quality practice that are highlighted there, success criteria, learning intention and success criteria is it's aligned to those themes and integrated across many of those themes. So when you look at it overlaps into assessment, high expectations, all of those things that have been identified as quality practice within classrooms. Students can, when you're looking at how it translates like across a school and into other schools, students K-12 use learning intention success criteria. So the tools and resources that are used, that students learn to use, they can use that. Those resources and tools adjusted as students get older and change grades and have success in various areas, but they're using them right throughout their schooling, and it gives success criteria. It's a concrete form for students to know that they're doing really well. Also, for as we even move out of school and into our professions, whatever we're going to do later in life, a lot of workplaces have PDPs, and they have learning intentions and success criterias in a type of forming PDPs, and how teachers, in many different jobs.
Yeah.
How teachers, I just said the same thing, in many different roles, how people have to succeed and do, achieve and show how they're going to achieve different levels of success in their own careers.
Yeah, and so we're giving them rhetoric from a young age to be able to not only talk about their improvement, but understand their improvement, because, certainly we call it performance development plans in an education setting, but, in a corporate setting, it'd be called key performance indicators. And so when they get to see what they need to achieve, they've got a rhetoric behind that. And I suppose it's certainly one of our goals, isn't it, to progress from there, because our parent-teacher meetings have always been with parents and teachers, but now, that we're giving the children the understanding behind what they're learning and giving them, the language behind that. There is a place for the students to, be involved in those meetings and talk about their own learning and talk about it with real punch and impact type of thing. So, I think from a society point of view, what we're bringing up using this system is a far more keyed in individual who understands what their job is, what they need to do, and how they can articulate the success in what they're trying to achieve. So, moreover, I think we're preparing people for society in a very, very informative way that allow them to have success in their vocation. So it's not just about the next year, the 5 years, the 7 years they're at primary school, the 13 years they're at a school altogether. It's about what is this going to look like in 20 years' time as an adult? You know what I mean? And that's very exciting from our point of view. Ladies, absolutely fantastic. And, this conversation we could have for days, to be honest, and not that I want to take you away from your very important roles at the moment, certainly Kylie in school and Nerida as a new mum. But thank you so much for giving so much of an insight into what LISC is all about, but also, preparing our pre-service teachers and early career teachers into what should be happening in their classroom. It's really, really important. All right. Are you ready? Because now we have the song challenge. The song challenge is it's evolved into different things. So we tried buzzers or buzzing in with names, didn't work. But so what I will do is I'm going to read out a couple of lines of a song. I'm not going to sing it. I'm just going to read it out, and you just blurt out the song title and the artist. Now I've been very lenient here, to be quite honest. This particular song, there are 3 different artists who have done this song. All right, so that gives.
It's Michael Jackson, isn't it?
Oh, it's not Michael Jackson.
Yes.
Twice in the song challenge, so it's not a Michael Jackson song.
Sorry, news.
You can't narrow it down that far, but there are 3 different artists that have actually performed this song over the last 30 years. Okay, so are you ready for the song challenge? Of course, as always, we're playing for high stakes here. Right.
Does that come in the mail?
If one of you get the artist and the song title, then it's one each. Or we know most people that come onto the principal's office are very, very generous. Even if they get the 2, they end up sharing. So they're virtual now, but they will come to you, I promise. Okay, so high stakes, playing one of Australia's icons in the Minty. But anyway, are you ready?
Ready.
Fantastic. All right. There's a party going on around here.
A celebration to let
all night long.
years.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's it
Lionel
called?
Richie. Isn't it All Night Long? Oh, what's it called?
No.
Celebration, Celebrate.
No, Celebration, Kylie Minogue. Did she sing it?
Lemonade will accept. So we've got one each. Yes. So yes, the song was Celebration. Kylie Minogue did cover it. Dragon covered it as well, but the original and still the best. Kool and the Gang.
Oh.
What a band. That was actually very, very quick. I think the last time you were involved, Kylie, it was a Bon Jovi song.
Right.
You got it straight away because you're a Bon Jovi fan, but wonderful. Well done. Even a bit of singing from Nerida. Well done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good Nerida.
You got to sing it to know which song it is.
Yeah, exactly.
I was right off.
Yes, but we've had crickets before with the song challenge. People just have no idea whatsoever, but that was very quick indeed, ladies. So quick between the ears, quick on the buzzers or whatever it is. Very successful song challenge today. But look, I'd like to thank you again for being part of today's vodcast, episode 16. Great insights for our pre-service and early career teachers to move forward with. I'd like to thank also our executive producer, Erwin Manalo, a champion behind the scenes who, makes it all look so much better than what I can actually do. So I appreciate Erwin's work. For people watching this podcast, don't forget to hit us up on our socials. So we've got our Principal's Office Facebook page. We've got Twitter under my Twitter account, Matty D. Lewis. We've got LinkedIn as well under Matthew Lewis. And we've also got this on YouTube. So at the end of this episode, you'll see the arrows pointing down to make sure you subscribe, because the more people that see this moving forward, the better it is for certainly the teacher profession. But ladies, thank you so much for being a part of episode 16. For everyone watching, thanks for joining us today. Good to see you again, ladies, and take care. See you later, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
It's off to the principal's office you go. It's off to the principal's office I go.